to turn on live captioning, now's a great time to do that. Click the little ellipses at the top, click on the language and speech, and turn on live captioning. We encourage everybody here to use chat to ask questions, so please feel free to ask our presenters any questions that you like. Our presenters love reactions, so please go ahead and give them some reactions. If you hear something great that they're talking about, I don't think we have any polls, but if we did, they are anonymous as well. And lastly, wanted to talk slightly about our digital event code of conduct. And so we are seeking to create a respectful, friendly, and fun environment here. So we encourage everyone here to assist in creating, a welcoming and safe environment during this summit. And with that, I'm going to kick it off to Nathaniel to talk about our Microsoft Teams call queue scheduling app.
Thanks, Jonathan. Hi, everyone. I'm Nathaniel Mulvihill. I'm a Converge Communications Customer Success Manager. With me, I have two of my peers, Matt Edelhuber and Keenan Crockett. Our role at Microsoft is really focused on the adoption of Teams Phone and Microsoft Teams Rooms. Today, we're specifically here to talk about the Teams call queue scheduling app that was recently released on GitHub. So we have a short agenda today. Keenan's gonna kick us off with the care team audience that we're talking about for this application, challenges and partnerships with our customers. We'll do an app overview. We have 2 use cases and 2 demos for this application, and then we'll cover some brief next steps. Keenan, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, thanks, Nathaniel. Hey, good morning, everyone. So, this slide is definitely more geared towards the provider audience. But as Nathaniel and Matt talk about the solution, it could be used in other environments, right? But just to level set the audience as we talk through these solutions, right, we look at the personas and how they're using the devices. So specifically for healthcare networks, the physicians and how they work across devices and dedicated devices and what that experience is in BYOD. When we start looking at nurses, it slightly changes and it could be shared devices. And, the identity is switching on that device. Then also the care teams, and right, it could be a combination of dedicated devices or shared devices in those audiences, and how these applications work with Teams and the solution that Nathaniel will talk about. So it's important, right? As some of these solutions might focus on one persona, it's important to just take a step back and look at the bigger audience and who can benefit from this solution. So Nathaniel, next slide. And so, we put this slide in, and I see a hand raised, which is great. I'll finish this and we can answer it. But, it's the challenges in the partnership. This solution that Nathaniel and Matt will be talking about, it came from a challenge at one of our existing customers. And, the teams came together and a great solution was produced. So, it starts by hearing from you, hearing from the customers, hearing the challenges that you're facing. We want to talk about the art of the possible and right, speak non-technical and then put all the pieces together, right, and see the magic that can happen from that. And ultimately, hopefully it modernizes, right, some communication workflows. So there's a lot of exciting tools that we have to put phone and process together, and that's what you'll hear today. So all it takes is raising a hand and asking to have a conversation. And that's, I think, where the magic starts. So, and maybe the hand was lowered. So I think, Nathaniel, maybe I'll pass it back to you.
Okay. Yep. And we can answer your question. Keenan, if you just want to let me know once they ask their question, I can take a pause really quick.
Yep.
So I know for those of you that aren't familiar with Teams phone system, call queues might be sort of an unfamiliar concept. Call queue inside of Teams phone system allows you to take a main phone number or any phone number and distribute inbound calls to that phone number to a group of people that you select. So it's anyone that has access to Teams. This application augments that existing capability and allows you to schedule folks as part of that. as part of that call queue. So when we look at, doctors or nurses, you don't want them to have to open the app in the morning. They have to sign in already to a multitude of applications. So as part of this application just automatically logs them into the call queue when their shift starts and automatically signs them out when their shift is over, whether that's a 12-hour shift, 8-hour shift, whatever you set up. Some of the key benefits is really providing a seamless workflow for clinical staff that are on call or answer a group of calls. Again, the app automatically signs the clinician in and out of the call queue, so there's no manual intervention needed from the clinician, and they can focus on patient care. And with scheduling them as part of the queue, you're making sure it's always staffed and those patient calls aren't missed. And we'll talk about this a little bit in the next slide, but the solution can be automated using existing data from another scheduling system like Kronos, QGenda, whatever it may be, as long as it has an API interface that we can reach out to. So when we talk about scheduling options, or when you talk about any scheduling application, we're going to need a way to get that scheduling data into the application so it can sign you in and out of your shift. The application comes with two ways to do that. The first one is really a manual way. So, a department admin, whoever it may be, could log into the Power App via a web browser and create that schedule data using the app's interface. We know you probably already have that scheduling data in some other location. Maybe it's Lightning Bolt, Oracle, wherever it's at. So we also have a way to do this automatically using some sort of automation tool. You would pull that scheduling information down from that system and into the application. The applications, it stores all its data in a SharePoint list, so you could easily put, that scheduling information back into the application. So I'll pause there. Are there any questions right away, Keenan?
Yep. There's one in the window there, Keenan.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah, just saying, what if a person, she or he is a no-show for work?
Yeah, so that is kind of why we have this plus symbol up here. I didn't really highlight it, but you can use, so say you set up this automated method, right? What happens if someone doesn't show up for work? Well, you can also augment that capability using the manual intervention in the app's interface. We'll kind of demonstrate that in the use case demo, but someone, a department admin, a nursing unit coordinator, a physician assistant, whoever it is, could go into this application and change the schedule on the fly. So you wouldn't have to worry about if someone calls out of work, you could just manually go in and change that inside of the application.
We have another question in there. What's the timing to the client? As I understand it, this moves people in and out of groups and doesn't control the slider for the queues.
Yeah, so that is correct. We don't have a way with call queues yet to control the opt-in and opt-out functionality. For what it's worth, I do have a feature request in for that. Hopefully we'll get it at some point. What it's doing is we're not using a group on the back end. We're actually adding individual participants to the queue. So at any one time, due to the limitations, you could have 20 people signed into the queue when they're on shift. If they're off shift, it would remove them from that queue completely. Hopefully that answers your question. So yeah, ideally we would be able to, programmatically slide that opt-in and opt-out slider, but it's just not available today. We are tracking it with the product group. Ideally, we would be able to just opt them in and opt them out to make this a lot more seamless. Are there any other questions in the chat, Keenan, or is that it?
There's one more that came in. Jonathan, you want to take that one?
Yep, sorry about that. Is the Power Automate set up using a service account? If it's set up using a user account, is that username linked to the schedule created in the shift?
That's a good question. I don't have that information right now. Ideally, it wouldn't be a person. You could use a service principal or a service account. And that schedule wouldn't be linked. There's a way we do this. This was created by the Microsoft product group as a third-party app. The way we do this is it's all kind of stored back end in a SharePoint list, so no one really owns that schedule, if it makes sense. but you can go in there in the application and delegate out access so that, say, Keenan manages schedule 1. I could select him as being the only person that can manage that call queue schedule. So it does have like role-based access control, if that makes sense. All right. So the first use case we have here is an on-call rotation for Telestroke consult. So clinicians are a member of Teams call queue, and they accept calls from regional facilities as a point of escalation for Telestroke consults. They're operating in a 24/7, 365 shift schedule, and the primary modality for accessing Teams for them is a mobile device. However, anywhere Teams works, these inbound calls would bring their client, whether it's VDI, desktop, mobile, whatever it is. They're answering these calls on a mobile device. 1 to 2 physicians are signed into the call queue during their shift. A regional escalation or a nurse from a regional facility would call into that call queue. Based on whoever's available, it does follow the team's presence. So if the physician was not available, or they're in do not disturb, or they're on another call, it would automatically filter over to the other physician that was signed into the call queue. The outcome here is really prioritizing patient care. So there's no need for a physician to sign in and out of the call queue. There's no delay in care. We're making sure that the queue is always staffed. And then for reporting, all of these changes are captured in an audit log inside of SharePoint. So if someone goes in, or say there's a missed call, or a queue's not staffed for whatever reason, there is an audit log behind all of this to say, okay, well, nurse XYZ went in there and made a change that broke the call queue or signed everyone out. So you would be able to go in there and track down whatever happened that made it not work as expected. So, looks like we had a hand raised. Keenan, do we have any other questions? I know I'm running through this pretty fast, so feel free to stop me and ask more questions if you have any clarification you want. You will notice on the right-hand side here for this Telestroke on-call use case, this was developed with the provider that actually helped us build this application for their use case. And their setup, they had a scheduling system that was lightning bolt, and they had an admin that actually went in there and programmed the schedules into the call queue scheduler application. Ideally, long-term, you would automate this connection right here. So that it's just going to automatically pull down that data, and there's no manual intervention from a department administrator or anything like that. So if there's no questions, I'll move over to our short demo. If you are on the Teams preview client, I just want to warn you, we've seen a weird thing where sometimes PowerPoint videos you won't see, or when PowerPoint Live has videos in it, you won't see the video or hear audio. It will be captured in the recording. So if you don't have audio, just please refer back to the recording. All right, so short demo. Just for follow-up, if you do have interest in this application, we have another use case, but just for what it's worth, if you do want to see a full demo of this application, we have it deployed in our demo environment inside of Microsoft. So if there is follow-up, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I know it was part of the registration had my LinkedIn account, or you can reach out directly to your Microsoft account team and they could connect you with me. So if
There
there's no question,
is one more question there that came
one
in.
question.
Let's see. Is there any integration with third-party shift scheduler apps possible instead of uploading an XLS file?
Yes. So due to the multitude of systems out there, we haven't built like any Power Automate connectors or default connectors. However, the Microsoft product group developed this. I'm closely connected to the individual that uploaded it to GitHub. So if you wanted to talk about that, we don't have any default integrations to answer your question. There's no, like this isn't default integrated with Lightning Bolt or QAgenda. But if you had a desire to do that, you could work with me and the product group, and we could work through how that would work using Power Automate or any other automation tool that you have.
Okay. It just came in. Is any of this on the roadmap that you're talking about?
So default integration with like QGender or anything, I don't think that's on the roadmap. It is a third-party application. This isn't a Microsoft official product. You couldn't submit a ticket to like Microsoft support for this. This is a public app available on GitHub. I think in working with customers, like Keenan mentioned earlier, if we did build out something that integrated with QGenda, we would likely publish it inside of GitHub for other customers to use. But I wouldn't say it's on the roadmap right now.
Okay. And I see. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Just Nathaniel, can you maybe describe GitHub briefly, just for folks that might not be familiar with it?
Yeah, so GitHub is a third party, or well, I guess Microsoft owns it now. So it's a Microsoft development site that houses repository of like third party applications that for the most part, Microsoft has this page where the community develops applications that can be used by anyone. So you could take that code and it could be customized by your in-house developers to fit your specific needs. So it's really, I think, Abby would correct me, it's called an app template inside of Teams. But yeah, it's a lot of the deployments automated, but it's just a third-party site where you can go and get code for applications that have been built by the community.
Great. And Sarah put in the window. It was a little fast for the video, so if you want to go back and rewatch it, feel free to go onto our blog again and rewatch that and listen to that awesome music that I heard in the background there. That was great.
Oh yeah. Okay. So if there's no more questions, Matt, do you want to kick off this use case?
Yeah, can you hear me okay? I had to switch to mobile. I'm having some network issues here.
Yes, sir. You're all good.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks. So this is just another use case with the Call Queue Scheduler app where we did partner with one of our customers. They kind of explained the challenge that they were facing, to articulate it a little bit more. They had a nursing unit with a whiteboard. Every shift, they would essentially kind of write on the whiteboard, hey, nurse 1 is covering rooms 1 through 4 today. And by the way, here's a telephone that kind of will ring if any of those rooms are trying to reach the provider. So we essentially, took that model and tried to modernize that particular workflow using Teams Phone with call queues. So in this example, the scenario, right, nurses or a patient care team are responsible for caring for patients in a specified set of rooms during their shift. In this example, the unit coordinator is going to maintain the shift schedule to ensure that all patient rooms have a nurse or care team assigned during the shift. When the nurse starts their shift, they are automatically signed into the Teams call queue to receive calls from these patient rooms. At the end of the shift, they're automatically removed. When a patient calls the nurse can easily identify which room is calling based on the toast notification that will appear on the phone. So the outcome here really ensures, the queue is always staffed, care is not delayed. We're adding automation, so these nurses And care teams do not need to, manually engage with the call queue, simplified schedule management. And then again, just like before, right, we're capturing all these changes in the audit log. So we also have a brief 1-minute demo that kind of takes us through this use case as well.
Yeah, I know we're running close on time, but it's worth noting that the inverse of this setup works as well. So if there was internal communication, say a provider or doctor needed to call the nurse that was staffing room 5, they could call that room 5 just the same and contact that nurse internally for a status update on that patient or whatever it may be. So we'll just show the quick demo here. Right. So that brings us to the end of the content here. What we kind of see as next steps for most customers that are looking at a solution like this is, further discussing the solution internally, look at the GitHub documentation, see what it would take to deploy within your environment and if it meets your security foundations. And then, of course, reach out to the clinical organization, review your clinical requirements, see if the application, Teams Phone, if this makes sense all up for your organization, and then define success. What does this mean to your organization, and what does it gain for the nurses or doctors? And then, of course, review the financial model. So, of course, we are using Power App in the background. We're also using some Azure Functions, Power Automate, things like that, and then Teams Phone. So there is some licensing cost to this. Hopefully, it's not overwhelming. But there is a financial cost to this, so does it make sense for your organization? If it does, configure and deploy the application. So like I mentioned earlier, this was developed by the Microsoft product group. We can help you with deployment assistance and iron out any bumps there may be. And then pilot and validate your solution. So once it's deployed to the doctors and nurses, does this really fit their needs? Are there any bumps in the application that need to be ironed out? And update your documentation. So do the nurses and doctors know how this works? If someone new comes into the organization, can they simply read a document and understand the workflow? And then roll it out to the rest of your organization. So that brings us to the end of it. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Keenan, Matt, and I are solely focused on Teams Phone and Microsoft Teams Rooms. So we want to help our healthcare organizations or any customer out there help deploy solutions like this that solve challenges for them. So I appreciate everyone's time today. Jonathan, with that, I'll just hand it back to you. Thanks, everyone.
That's great. Yeah, thank you guys. What an awesome presentation. Really appreciate that. We are now going to move into our second part of our summit. And we're going to talk a little bit about teams with Teladoc and Solo. And we have a great presenter on here, Scott Wilson, to talk a little bit about this. Scott, turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. Now, everybody hear me and see me?
We can hear you, but I see a blank screen.
All right. That's okay if you don't see me personally. My face is not the star of what I want to show, so that's all right there. I want to mention before I get started that because the platform I'm demonstrating, Teladoc Solo, inside of Teams, actually uses Teams AV for a lot of the different things I'm going to show. I have to do a few tricks in order to not kick myself out of the meeting. So one of those is I am actually joined in this call right now in an in-private browser, which might introduce a little bit of delay into some of the things I'm doing, may result in my camera not showing up because of some other things I have turned on my computer at the moment. But you will see me here in a few moments as I get ready to share, and you get to see what's inside the platform. So I'm going to share my screen. All right, can you see my screen now?
Not yet, Scott.
Not yet. Yeah, give it a, maybe on that delay.
Just let me know when it shows up.
Still seeing Nathaniel's. Maybe you want to try and exit the screen share and try again, Scott.
Okay.
Okay. So that one's gone.
Well, I shared. If it's still not showing up, I could take a moment and Abby, if you want to just pull me back in through the main window, I can share almost everything that I want to show without actually connecting. So I can do that. So I'll drop out of this one, send me the invite, and I'll join right back in.
Okay, one sec.
Oh.
I'm just putting you in now, Scott. Sorry, everyone. It's minor technical difficulty. There it is.
So now we see you, Scott. We see your video. Up, you're on mute.
And you're on mute.
There you go. See, that's a bonus. If you can see my camera, that
There
means
you go.
something's getting started here.
Cool. Okay, we
Yeah,
can see
we
your
can see it.
screen now.
Okay. All right, good. So what I'm going to start off with is the Solo platform that I'm going to show you today. This is Teladoc's enterprise virtual care platform. It's capable of facilitating medical consults, communications, documentation, all types of clinical reviews, as well as workflows for everything that a client might need to do in virtual care, from direct-to-patient visits at their own home to hybrid care where a patient might come into a rural clinic, and into the types of inpatient care that Nathaniel was just talking about with the call queuing solutions that you saw. So this is an app that runs inside Teams. I'm going to go ahead and click the Solo link here and give you a quick tour around Solo. So the first page that a user comes to when they get into Solo is the call queue, or not the call, it's the visit queue page. So in this instance, I am a practitioner inside of the Solo instance. So when I jump in, I see all of the patients that are on my list for today, whether they are scheduled visits or folks that I need to round on, or on-demand type requests that came in through a queue, maybe a bedside call button or something like that. They all show up in the call queue so I can see my particular work list. And they're also separated by what we call clinical service lines. This could be a ward in a hospital, an individual hospital, a particular clinical service for an entire health system, however the client wants to set those up. So I'm going to come back to this call queue look in a couple of minutes, but I do want to skip over to this services tab. Services represent If you kind of think of this as a medical office building, when you walk into a medical office building, you may have a directory on the wall or a person at the end of the hallway when you walk in, and they can tell you where all the different things are inside that building, all the different services. And typically, each doorway that you come to, when you open that door and walk in, they're going to provide a very specific clinical service inside that door. So all of these lines that you see in the center of the screen here, these represent all of the clinical services that are available inside either this medical office building, this hospital, this health system, however the client wants it to be set up. And I can have as many of these main containers as I want inside the Solo system. We call those Solo practices. So if a health system has 13, 14 hospitals and wanted a separate container for each one, or a separate container for each floor in a hospital, they can set it up that way. When a user signs in, they only see the clinical services that are relevant for them. So if you have a nurse or another care team member that is working in a hospital and they only float between 2 or 3 floors, they would only see 2 or 3 lines in this list. Again, just what's relevant for them. I see them all because I oversee this entire clinical practice that we're looking at here. So everybody that's on here, I get to see. I'm going to go ahead and filter this list. So I'm going to filter it down to the ones that have my name on them. And what I'm going to show you to start with is a direct-to-patient visit. So this product can be linked directly to Epic, Cerner, Meditech, any number of EHR systems. So what I'm going to show you to begin with, all is happening standalone in Solo inside of Teams, but it can also happen inside the health system's EHR, and then just have that information pushed over into the Solo and Teams environment for folks to work in here if this is the best place for them to work. So they get a lot of flexibility in the things that they want to do. I'm going to start out with the Wilson Health Partners. This is a primary care practice that I have, and you can see 2 people were seen in this practice today. I'm going to go ahead and schedule a visit. This database that I'm going to search here, this is a standalone database inside Solo, the one I'm looking at, but I did mention just a moment ago that we can connect this to the EHR. So this could be the full patient panel that's available inside the client's EHR. They can query here and choose folks to work with. I'm going to pick Bernie Wilson. Bernie happens to be one of my dogs. I'm traveling today, so I don't know what he's doing, but typically he's on the floor behind me and he's happy to participate as a patient. I'm going to see him on his own cell phone. And I can pick from the providers that I'm going to schedule this visit to. I'm going to schedule it to me. I can choose the date and time. I'm going to leave it set at that so I can get the visit going there. And Bernie's language, I can choose from any number of languages that he might speak. He's a native English speaker, but if maybe he was a Spanish speaker or needed American Sign, I can choose that language and then have an interpreter join that call, video interpreter, right as soon as that call starts. So there's no waiting on anybody to join the call or getting on the call and figuring out after 5 minutes that we can't understand each other. I can select the reasons for visit. This is configurable by the client, so they can choose what is typically something that people come in for in this. I'm going to choose allergies for Bernie. I can type another thing if I want to, and then I'm going to come down and confirm the visit. And when I confirm the visit, Solo typically is configured for a client to automatically send out an email and a text invite to that patient. I don't have it set up to automatically send right now because every time I tested something, my phone would just be blowing up with them. But I can have that set up so I don't have to even come to this screen. It just automatically sends an invite out. These invites that go out, I'll walk you through one in a moment. They are a single user invite. So once they get it and click the link and get started with an intake process, nobody else can use that link without providing all the authentication they need to show that they are the person that link was intended to go to. So there's no chance that I get the link and I have it and somebody else stumbles on it, it got intercepted, or I forwarded it and now I've got a big party coming to my clinical visit. We have plenty of ways to invite other people into the sessions with their own individual links. Over on the left-hand side, this is my cell phone. I'm going to go ahead and push this message out to my cell phone. We'll wait a minute till it shows up on the left there. You can see that link showed up. So I'm going to close the scheduling book. And inside the scheduling book here, now I'm inside a queue view for this Wilson Health Partners. And you can see Bernie has showed up as scheduled. If I'm the care team person and I want to see what's up for me today, I can click on Bernie's link and I can come over and review There we go. I can click on Bernie's link and I can come over and review the details of this appointment that is coming for him. If I want to, I can also search the patient imaging. I'm going to click this. No imaging will show up because Bernie doesn't have any images. But what shows up is it will log me into the system. Oops, that wasn't good. Close that by accident. See if I can get back to it. There we go. So when I go into the patient imaging, what that's going to do is it's going to open up another window for the imaging system. And this is connected to the health system's PACS systems. So anything that is connected to the system, I can come in and automatically puts Bernie's information in, and I can query all the PACS systems. I could see X-rays, MRIs, anything that is in there. I can come in and I can review that documentation before I start my visit without having to get out and go into a different tool. I can also, if I want to document inside Solo, I can do that. In this case, this is a primary care visit, so I have this short primary care note. These notes could be configured for clients so they can have any type of note template they want. I can come in, I can document inside Teams everything I'm doing before this visit and during the visit and save that information. It stays inside Solo, and we can also link this to the EHR, so this can be pushed right back into Epic, Cerner, Meditech, Allscripts, anything that is an HL7 compliant EMR system. I'm going to close that. And right here, if I had decided I wanted to add an interpreter and I didn't have one before, I can add an interpreter to that visit. And one of the things that I can't do right now because of the technical issue we had getting started with sharing, I can't actually join the visit with Bernie, but I will show you or talk through a little bit of what that looks like when I get to that point. I'm going to switch over to the cell phone here because as the clinician, I'm done reviewing this pre-visit stuff. I'm going to click on the link. Bernie got a configurable text message here that gives him a run through of what this visit is about, has his single use link. When he clicks his link, this starts an intake process through Teladoc. This is a Teladoc web app to begin with. There is a point where it switches over to Microsoft ACS infrastructure, and I'll show you when that happens. I'm going to go ahead and click the check-in button. Again, this is Bernie on his own cell phone. You can click the continue button there. It's going to let Bernie check all of his demographic information. So if he wants to change anything to update the records, he can do that on the way in the door. I'm going to click the continue button again. I can have consent forms on here. This is completely configurable for the client. So these consent forms can say whatever it is the client needs to say. We can capture wet signatures on them. I'm going to sign that document. Yes, I am the patient. In this case, it was just asking a couple of questions there for me, and it drops me into the call queue. Over on the clinician side, what happened is I have all my notifications turned off in Teams, but if I had them turned on, I would get notices from the Solo application that says Bernie is checked in, he's ready to be seen. So then I can get inside Teams and I can look at his record and I can come down and I can review all of the things that he has done beforehand in the intake, including this consent form that Bernie signed. And since this has all now been captured and is part of Solo, it can be sent into the clinical record for safekeeping. And got his signature on it right there. Okay, so this is the point where I can't actually connect to this call or it will kick me out of this team session that I'm on right now. If I hit the connect button, a full Teams window will open for the care team member. So they have the ability to do everything you can do in Teams. Plus there's an extra app inside Teams for Solo that makes all of this stuff on the right-hand panel available inside the video window. So the care team member never has to leave that view of Bernie in order to do the notes, search imaging, look at documents that got submitted and things like that. There's also a couple of options in there. If they again need another opportunity to add the interpreter, they can add the interpreter that way once they're in the session. They can also send out extra invites. Maybe Bernie said, hey, I need my mom and dad to be here too. Here's their cell phone numbers. The care team member can put things in, put the numbers in there and then send that right out to Bernie. Once I hit the connect button, Bernie on his side will be passed into an ACS app that's been customized for use for these direct-to-patient visits inside the Solo and Teams environment. Then he has all of the ACS controls in there to do his video visit. So I apologize that I can't show that part on the call right now. What I am going to do, though, is I'm going to take Bernie out of that session. And when I take him out of the session, he's still waiting here because he has an opportunity to get back in because of he didn't actually finish the call off there. One other thing that I do want to show real quick. There is a way for, I showed you just now how I can schedule a visit for Bernie, but Bernie can also schedule his own visit through the Solo platform. I can come through a web page, or I can do it on my phone through an app. In this case, I'm going to add Max to this. And the demographic information I collect can be as robust or as minimal as I want. But I do have a few minimum things I need to put in there for that. So this is another look at some intake questionnaires. So Bernie has some allergies today, or Max has some allergies today. He can pick his date and time of visit with this clinician from all of the open appointments that are on the list. He will automatically get a link sent to him, but if he wants to send that link somewhere else as well, he has an opportunity to type in a different phone number and a different email address and send that link wherever he wants. Then he's also able to complete these intake forms right away. So in this case, I have a little bit different one. Bernie is in a little bit of pain today. He can say where he is. This comes up as a generic male picture, but if I had chosen to have the patient name their gender, if it came up as female, it would come up as a female body. If it came up as male, it would be a male body. If they chose not to identify, it would come up as a kind of a gender neutral body. Can I ask a few more questions? Get my pain level. And when I'm all finished, this visit, since my appointment isn't ready yet, after this process is inside, and this is also part of the demo environment I'm on, it hasn't gone over to that yet because of a couple of things on my hotel Wi-Fi. Once it would connect to that, it would pop up a message that says your appointment isn't until the 29th, so please come back 20 minutes before. You'll get a text message reminder when it's time for that visit. And then since that was in a different clinical service, if I went to that other clinical service, it would show him in the queue on that particular day. So that's direct to patient visits. I want to show one other part here. I'm going to maximize this window. And I'm going to go to something that we call care locations. You just saw a really good set of presentations from Nathaniel about how the Teams phone and the call queuing can really help people make sure they're in the right places at the right times to do the work that they need to do. So in this case, I'm going to show you what the Solo application does for facilitating the last piece of that, which is actually making those connections into the rooms. So Teladoc, in addition to having clinical services that we deliver and software products like what I'm showing you now, we also produce hardware. They are purpose-built telemedicine endpoints for use in a number of different environments, whether it's mobile, permanently mounted in rooms, operating rooms, EDs, any place like that. They are devices that require no interaction on the device end, but you could have interaction on the device end. You can actually go to one and input a request to get into a visit that way. So let's say you were in the call queuing system, and as a clinician, you got a message sent to you out of what Nathaniel showed you. That message could conceivably contain a link into a location in Solo. So when you click that link in Solo, it would take you directly to what we call a care location, which are these devices. Now, I'm actually in Chicago this week at the HIMSS conference. I'm working in the Teladoc and the Microsoft booth. So this device here that I'm going to connect into, this is one of our Teladoc Minis. It's built around a Surface Pro device. It is actually sitting in the Microsoft booth. So I'm going to see if I can connect to that device, and we're going to see what's going on in that booth real quick. So I'm going to hit the connect button. It'll take a few moments. And then we should be connected into this device in the McCormick Center just down the street here, provided my hotel Wi-Fi cooperates.
Whilst we're waiting, Scott, we have a few questions that maybe we can cover.
Sure.
No, we'll wait until it jumps in here.
All right. So there you can see a couple of our folks. These are some of our, this is Ed Percy. Ed is part of our team in Europe. Actually, this is the Teladoc booth I went into. So I didn't get into the Microsoft one, but I can move this camera around and I can focus in on anybody in the conference. So if I needed to, if I was looking at a patient, this is this person here, this is Tammy Crest. She is one of my team members who works with our inpatient connected care solutions. This device probably is about 60 to 70 feet away from her, and I've zoomed in that close on it. I'm going to go ahead and end that session. Let's see if, I don't know if the Microsoft one is available there. Yeah, let's see what's going on in the Microsoft booth real quick.
And so this type of scenario, Scott, could be, what type of scenarios do you tend to see this within sort of the medical field?
We do this, our devices are used in probably about 70% of the stroke interactions, the virtual care stroke interactions that are done around the United States. Yeah, see there, this is Edgar Meneses. Edgar works for me, and he is in the Microsoft booth right now giving a little bit of demo. So if we want, we can look over and we can see who he's talking to here. We'll get out of his visit there. So now you guys have seen into the Microsoft booth at HIMSS there. So Abby, the question about what type of situations do we use this in? These devices are used in probably about 70% of virtual care stroke interactions in the United States. We have devices like this all over the world. We currently, through our partners with the World Telehealth Initiative, are providing infrastructure for battlefield medicine and just slightly behind the front lines medicine in Ukraine and in other war-torn areas around the world. We have thousands of these devices in settings like inpatient rooms where they are mounted permanently on the walls, or they're carts that can be moved in and out. And they can also be used, we have software that can be put on Surface Pro devices or any other lightweight tablet, so they can use these devices anywhere that they might need to. One last thing I want to show really quickly is I've been showing you this on a desktop, but all the stuff actually works very well inside Teams on a mobile device as well. So I'm inside Teams on my same mobile phone, and this is the Solo app. I'm going to go to the care locations. And in this case, I'm going to pick a different location. I've bugged the folks in Chicago here enough. So I'm going to go out to California here momentarily. The list of devices here, much like the list of clinical services, are only the ones that would apply to the clinician that's logged in. And I can see a number of different devices around the world because of the work that I do. It will show me the status of the device, if it's able to be used right now, if it's busy. The blue ones are busy, the green ones are available. So in this case, I'm going to go into another Teladoc mini device with a Surface Pro in it. And this is out in Santa Barbara, California. So this one might take just a moment longer to get to, but it will connect on the phone here. So while that's connecting, what other questions showed up in the chat, Abby?
Yeah, so another question is if, for example, a doctor is running late or the visit, is delayed for some reason, is there a way that the doctor can notify through the chat into the visit whilst the patient is waiting?
For a direct-to-patient visit, there is functionality built into Solo that can automatically notify the patient. So if the visit is supposed to start, let's say at 5 o'clock, and at 3 minutes after 5, maybe that's the time frame that's set up. If the doctor hasn't shown up, the system will automatically send a message out to the patient to say, please don't leave, your doctor is running behind. We also have the capability to customize that message and send additional ones. That's a feature that we're rolling out pretty soon because there there are some sensitivities on the client side that we've run into in terms of they either do or do not want their care team members to be able to customize messages. So we're looking into how to make those more of pick lists, so the clinical care operations teams can kind of control what that messaging is back and forth to the patients.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
And you can see this device out in California. I can do the same things on this one. I can zoom in and out. I can move around the room, all on my mobile phone. One of the things that we have found very powerful for clinicians, I saw a question in the chat on the previous part of the presentation about the devices that the nurses might have, whether they're hospital provided or personal devices. One of the great things we like about having our application inside Teams is by and large, it doesn't matter. Whatever device that care team member is carrying, if they can log into their Teams environment there, they can do everything that I've shown in the solo application. They don't need anything else. So in terms of scalability, it is super simple when we put our applications inside Teams, super simple to scale and just really turbocharge the productivity for everyone involved. That's the end of the quick run through I've got. Happy to take any additional questions or show anything else if folks have other stuff they'd like to see.
Yeah, another question from the chat, Scott. Can, for example, if you have the bookings calendar in Teams where the doctors will have their Teams calendar, is that able to integrate with Solo to have calendars, or even Epic or whatever your EHR system is?
Yeah, so today you cannot take the clinical information from Solo and put that into the Teams calendar. And it's not a technical capability. It's a choice that we've made based on feedback we've received from clients so far. Before I came to Teladoc, I worked for a pretty large health system in the Midwest. We had 14 hospitals and I think 35,000 employees. And one of the things that we found was our staff tended not to treat their productivity software with as much reverence as they did the EHR. So there's a lot of sensitivity right now around having potential HIPAA information inside an environment where the people at the moment don't quite treat it with the same respect to EHR. So it's not a technical issue. It's just a choice at the moment, but that's certainly something that once we get a big enough bolus of folks that say, hey, that's going to be powerful and we can control the security of who's leaving it open, we could do that.
Cool. Okay, perfect. Makes sense. Thank you. Oh, Jonathan, you're on mute.
Yep.
I'm trying. Hang on. Okay, there we go. All right. All right. Great presentation. Thank you, Scott. That was great. All presenters, yeah, amazing job. Let me actually share here now. If anybody has any other questions, and now I'm struggling to get back, so I'm just going to share my screen here. Can you guys see this?
Looks like it's still coming through. 1 second. There we go. We're good to go.
Great. Yeah. So thanks again to all of our presenters. What just amazing information. Again, if you guys want to look at the recording, we put the links out to our blog site, so feel free to run out and take a listen once it's uploaded there. We would ask for some feedback on these sessions here, so we have a survey. If you take our survey, we will be randomly providing some really cool giveaways that you see here. So please go ahead and take those surveys and try to win some of these amazing prizes. We have some additional summit sessions that are coming up. So take a look here of what is coming up. Some interesting ones for tomorrow that I'll be hosting here is going to be talking a lot about the Viva licensing seated versus premium, and that should be a really good one as well too. So again, thank you. Thank you to everybody who has attended. Thank you to all of our presenters. Please stay connected with us. Go ahead and register to our Health and Life Science Community Connections, our blog, and we're looking forward to seeing you at all of the rest of the summit sessions that are coming up. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow.
Bye, guys.